Okay, welcome back to another video. My name is Max. I own a coaching company called Max Coaching, where I've helped over 400 people in the last couple of years build a load of muscle and lose a load of fat. Today's video is going to be about scale weight. It's gone up during a fat loss phase. What do you do, or why has it gone up in the first place? So I'm going to reel off a couple of reasons why it goes up and hopefully clear a few things up for you guys. Firstly though, before I start, I just want to explain that a lot of these things can be fixed just by being consistent. It's a lot of inconsistencies across your diets, across your food, across your sleep, across stress that leads to scale weight going up and down. And remember, before we even start this, scale weight is just a tool to measure progress, okay? If your scale goes up one day, doesn't mean you have failed, you have plateaued, it's all over and you fall off track. It's just the way it goes sometimes. Pictures, measurements, how do your clothes feel? How do you fit? How do you look in the mirror? All of these things are way more, consistent than the scales. But as a coach like myself, sometimes we use it because it just helps to take a weekly average. Now, first things first, fluid intake, something that can massively affect scale weight. If you drink 2 liters of water one day, 6 liters of water the next day, you're going to be more hydrated and dehydrated the next day. So scale weight can always change from food. Step on the scales now. Let's say you're 90 kilos, drink a liter of water, you will be 91 kilos. You've not gained a kilo of fat, you just have more water in you. The way to try and keep this consistent is just to try and have a good amount of water per day, 3 to 4 liters per day. Try and kind of stay consistent. A little bit more when you train, but 1 liter one day, 6 liters the next day is obviously going to affect scale weight. So take that stuff with a pinch of salt. Number 2, a big one just for women really, is your menstrual cycle. Now, women can fluctuate from 0.5 to even 2 kilos in weight during this time. I see it all the time where I track so many women's cycles and their measurements. Women freak out during this time. Appetite can go up, cravings go up, bloating happens. You hold water, you can see it on your body. The scale weight goes through the roof, it goes up, then it holds for a week and then it tends to drop off. During your cycle, again, take the scale weight with a pinch of salt, or just stay off the scales completely. For some women, I actually get them to eat up a little bit on their cycle, so they'll even eat maintenance calories for 5 to 7 days for a week in a month, just to allow to deal with those cravings. It kind of helps them stay on track. But of course, this will affect their monthly fat loss, if you will. But if it keeps them happy and on plan, then roll with it. But during your cycle, I just wouldn't weigh yourself. Sleep is another one. Now, if you get 7 hours of sleep every single night, you go to bed at 11 and you wake up at 6, and then one day you randomly go to bed at midnight and wake up at 5, your sleep is completely screwed up. You haven't had as much time in bed. You probably had a later meal than normal, and you probably weighed yourself. If you weigh yourself the minute you wake up, you might weigh yourself at 10 past 5 instead of 10 past 7. All of this is going to have play a role in scale weight. Wake up, go for a wee and weigh. That's the only time you should weigh yourself. Wake up, wee, weigh. But if you've had 4 hours sleep instead of 7 hours sleep, or you had a huge late night meal, just save yourself the trouble and don't weigh yourself the next day. It's not the end of the world. Just skip it and weigh yourself the next day, because you will be up and it will probably affect you. And if you're someone that can easily get affected by scale weight, just stay away from it that day. Another thing, digestion. Now, when you're in a calorie deficit, you don't go to the loo as much, okay? Think there's almost like less waste product, okay? You have not as many calories, your body gets more efficient at using these calories, and you don't go to the loo as much. But as you get deeper and deeper into a deficit, you'll find that you're getting hungrier, and people tend to put more and more vegetables. And some of these veggies can be quite hard to digest if you go from having quite a lot of carbohydrates in your diet to minimal carbohydrates and high vegetables. You can get constipated, and this stuff can affect scale weight. And your body, if you haven't been to the toilet for 3 days and your weight is holding, it's probably got something to do with it. So always think about digestion as well with scale weight. This is another reason why we use pictures and measurements instead of the scales. Now, another big one as well is sodium and carbohydrates. So we'll start with sodium. If you have a heavy sodium meal, a lot of salt before bed, the body will retain water. This tends to always be a cheat meal or a meal off plan, which means it tends to be followed up with a higher amount of carbohydrates as well. I've said this before in my other videos, but a gram of carbohydrates holds around 3 to 4 grams of water. So if you have a bad night's sleep, go to bed late, have a heavy carbohydrate meal with a load of salt in there, and then wake up and weigh yourself, of course you can be up 2 kilos. Did the 700 calorie off-plan meal last night put 2 kilos of fat on your frame? No, it's a lot harder to gain body fat than we think. One off-plan meal that shoots you up 1.5 to 2 kilos, that isn't body fat, it is water. Late night carbs are always going to lead to a higher weigh-in. And if you're somebody that eats a lot of your carbs in the morning and then doesn't have any carbs for lunch and dinner, you might have a slight drop on the scales in the morning, but that doesn't mean it was all body fat. You just have less water in your system because you're low carb. Scale weight I've seen it stress, I've seen it ruin people's week. Don't be that person. Don't get emotionally attached to the number. Lastly, I want to talk about alcohol. Now, alcohol is a big one because if you have a night out, red wine's high in sodium, but if you just have a regular night out, beers, alcohol, vodka, whatever, you'll be down the next day. So a lot of people, they'll wake up on a Sunday morning and they'll message me, I had a few drinks last night, but I've lost 0.5 kilo, don't worry about it. And I say, right, if you went 700-800 calories over, had a bad night's sleep, you're just dehydrated. I guarantee you Monday morning when you wake up, you'll be up. We always see it. If you track scales, Monday to Friday, they're down, Saturday, Sunday morning, they're way down, and then Monday, they're way back up because they dehydrate from the booze, and they hydrate Sunday, and they wake up on Monday. So with alcohol, just count it into your total, count it into your daily calories. You can fit it in, but understand that there's a good chance you'll wake up down on the scales, as we always tend to be dehydrated after drinking. So many of these things affect your scale weight, and nobody can be perfect at all times. Nobody has the same amount of water, the same amount of sleep, the exact same amount of calories, the same meals. So there's always going to be discrepancies with weigh-ins. Use pictures, use weekly progress pictures, use measurements. How do you feel? How do you perform? How do you wake up in the morning? Do you have brain fog? Do you feel fresh? All of these things can be so much more beneficial. And if you're somebody that can actually step on a scale in the morning, and if it's up, let it ruin your day, and the way you speak to people, the way you go to work, the way you speak to your family, weigh yourself once a week. Don't be that person. Stick to pictures, stick to measurements, and you'll have a much better time. Right, if you enjoyed this video, hit a like, hit a subscribe, and I'll keep making them.